Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me now? I don't know what the hell happened. We don't know what the hell happened. Some of you have told me you heard the intro, but you couldn't hear me. Well, I didn't even hear the intro. I think I'm back too. Hello. Sorry for the delay. I'm not sure what that was, but it doesn't matter. Here I am. Yeah, it's okay. No, it's okay. It's cool. Whatever. Here we are. Sorry, a little bit late. Better late than never. Thank you for those of you who hung in there, waiting eagerly for whatever pearls of wisdom or dribble drabbles of depression I was going to unloose. Oh, God. I tried to take a nap yesterday, which I rarely try to do. And I think I was almost entering that wondrous state of unconsciousness when the crows of the East End decided to have a meeting at my house. When they do that, the crow convention happens usually around 3:34. It's always just mind-boggling how loud there's a million crows And I looked out the window and, geez, why didn't they take a picture? Every tree was a crow tree. It was really beautiful. It was loud. Turn down the volume, I thought. Jeez. And it went on and on. It was literally deafening. I ended up escaping the house. I did. I left. And then I saw there were more crows atop what's left of Tree of Life. That was eerie. They're such big birds. Then I saw them almost as vultures. God almighty. So I ran from the crows. I know that a bunch of crows together is called a murder of crows. I don't know why. I think it should be a cacophony of crows. Because that sure as hell is what it was. God! So, I did not watch, nor did I listen, nor did I pay any attention to the New Hampshire primary or its results. I went to bed not caring what the numbers were, and only looked this morning. When I figured, why bother doing this minute to minute as the returns dribble in and trying to get into the drama that television is trying to create here when you can know the result? It doesn't matter when you know. You can know the next morning with not having to live through the, up, down, could be here, could be there. It's ridiculous. There's better entertainment to be had. I'm just saying. Jeez. Oh, God. And then I see in the coverage today, very little of which I read, that Trump, if media would stop doing these what if stories or the prediction stories, what this could mean, if so-and-so had been in if none of that matters. Why don't they just stick to reality? I know it's tough. But I saw somebody post, and I thought, yeah, what else is new? I saw somebody post, and this was somebody who was watching the thing unfold, and he said this: Biden is hitting 70% as a write-in, and the media is framing him as weak. Trump is being held to 10 points, and the media says he's strong. I don't get it. Well, join the crowd. Yeah, sick of it. Sick of it. By the way, somebody I see was spotted in New Hampshire last night at Trump's whatever. I don't know if he had a rally and an incoherent gathering of some sort. But the person who was spotted is none other than his attorney, Alina Habba. Is that her name? Habba. And wasn't she, and a juror, but wasn't she supposedly down with COVID, which is why his trial, the Jean Carroll trial, wasn't going on yesterday? I mean, is that going to be noted, do you think, by the judge? Oh, God, these people. Okay. And I also saw something, and then I'm hoping I'm not going to say anything more about this. I'm so sick of it. Well, I will say something more because what the hell else? Somebody saying, and I'm sorry, I don't know who, that it would be helpful if we tried to stop thinking about political alignment, where we've always thought of it as a spectrum, right? The left, the right, moderates, conservatives, liberals, blah, blah, blah. And somebody is suggesting that whole paradigm is not the proper paradigm anymore. It doesn't hold. It's not right. Because in this moment, this historic moment in American history, we need to look at it as really just two things. Two things. That's it. You're either on this one or on that one. And this is it. You are either pro-democracy, which includes, as this person said, pro-democracy includes everybody from, what is wrong with my voice? Pro-democracy would be anybody from, my God, the extraordinarily, extremely conservative Liz Cheney to AOC, the members of the squad. So if we were still looking at us as voters as in the old way, we would never have the squad and Liz Cheney, cheek to jowl. But if we look at it as we should now, as you're either pro-democracy or you're pro-Trump, then you've got the reality with which we need to see the world, the political reality of America. I'll take the world out of it. The world is standing by in terror, watching us. Because the Republican Party really doesn't exist as it ever has. It is now Trump. That's all it is. We see that. We see the falling, I don't want to get into it. It's so awful. So the Republican Party has been replaced by Trump Party. And it is an anti-democratic party. And it is not conservative, which is why you have a conservative like Liz Cheney on our side. It is not conservative. It's not even particularly, it has nothing to do with policy. It has a lot to do with emotion. This guy, and I'll get to this thing I have sitting in front of me, says it is a Trump mutation. That's all it is now. And Trump has spent his entire life not as a builder, but as a destroyer, a loser, bankrupting business after business, destroying lives, drifting off his willing marks, one of whom, Lindsey Graham, before he went over, said, if we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed and we will deserve it. So I think I do think it's helpful to stop thinking about the Republican Party. I know it exists still, but it exists as if in some, science fiction film. It still exists in that, they show up, these people called Republicans show up in the U.S. Congress and But it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They're all the shells. And the party that was recognizable as recently as when George W. was president is not recognizable. And George W., I, in my dreams, hope that he actually is on our side in the quiet of a voting booth. For God's sakes, Dick Cheney, in the quiet of a voting booth, will not vote for Donald Trump. And I think he will vote for Biden. Because this is not a Republican Party anymore. It's the party of Trump. And that is quite clear. So I would suggest that we need to think in those terms. And when you're reading all this crap or listening to people and they're still trapped in that old paradigm of left to right and where people fall on it, it's not helpful to us right now. We are entering the most, I hate to think how horrific, the most horrific political period in our lives. I don't think any of us were around for the Civil War. But yeah, all I'm saying. And in that regard, wait, before I get off him, the horror, I want to say this. I read this piece that was in the Times today called I've Told My Last Trump Joke. And it is written by a guy who has spent, since he was in college in the 80s, he has spent his life ridiculing Donald Trump long before Trump was the president of the United States, when he was this young real estate developer. And this guy has been going after him since the 80s. His name is David Camp. No reason that you should know him. He ended up writing for the satirical magazine Spy. And Spy named Trump one of the 10 most embarrassing New Yorkers way back when. Spy was always belittling Donald Trump. And in fact, that they are the ones who coined short-fingered vulgarian to describe him. Anyway, I just want to say a lot of good all that did, right? Stopping his meteoric rise. But this guy says we have to stop laughing at him. He says the more we laugh at him, the more powerful he becomes. It doesn't bother him at all. In fact, it inflames his acolytes, his base. And this guy is right. So he says, we need to stop it. And so, like Saturday Night Live is going to stop it. But this guy says they should. He says, it is not the time for yet another bit in which Trump is portrayed as a nutty blowhard. And the guy who's writing this is a political humorist. He's not against humor. He just says these are not normal times, not when the foundation of our democracy is under threat by this short-fingered vulgarian who yearns to be the dictator of the United States. And then he says this, and I think I'm just going to then read his conclusion because I think it bears some thought. And because I recently watched this again and it's so brilliant. Charlie Chaplin boldly satirized Adolf Hitler as Adenoid Hinkle in his 1940 film, The Great Dictator. If you've never seen it, guys, please. And then this David Camp goes on to say the difference. And then he just nails Trump as much as any Trump impressionist is nailing him. And then he says the difference is that Charlie Chaplin, who was an Englishman who made his name in America, was operating from a position of moral strength. He was living in a country that was, at the time, the world's beacon of democracy, while the guy he was making fun of ran a country that had gone terribly wrong. This time, though, we, the United States, are the country that runs the very real risk of going terribly wrong. And so the ridicule is coming from inside the house. So let's treat this situation as seriously as it warrants. We are not in a position. It's our house. We don't have the remove nor the moral stature at this point to have the platform that Chaplin had in taking on Hitler. And he says, those of us who were at SPY have become accustomed to hearing people say, oh, if only SPY were around today. We need it more than ever. This guy who was at SPY said, but we don't. We need sobriety, probity, and focus. I understand that Donald Trump is funny inadvertently. Let's just hold off on the laughter until we defeat him. I think that is a good point. And one other I found right next door to this in the New York Times today in the letters section, written by a woman from New York, Magdalene Ruza. And she's talking about Trump's followers. And I think, people just can't get through their heads how anybody, there's no way that all these people who are Trumpians are people you would hate if you met. They might be wonderful people if all of this weren't happening, maybe. But she posits this theory, and I think this is quite a bit of it. She says, my theory is that for many Trump followers, their devotion to him has its roots in a toxic mixture of repressed envy and adoration. He's rich. His mouth is unfiltered. He unfailingly plays offense, even when he's on defense. And he presents himself as unaccountable to anyone or anything. Now stop and think how somebody who is not in the position in their lives, they ain't rich, they have to watch what they say, they are accountable in the world they live in. They do not themselves have the license that he seems to have to just let his id out. And they envy that. And they admire that he's got, I guess they look at it as courage to stick his finger in the eye of all of those people who, I guess they feel, lorded over them, the people they work for, the people in government, the people they're supposed to look up to. I think he lets them dream. He lets them imagine. And he's smart enough in this way to know that that's what the appeal is, which is why he's always saying that he's sort of this Christ-like figure, that they're coming after me. And I'm the only thing that stands between you getting the same treatment. And so they see him as their champion. It's nuts. It's wrong. But I think it makes some sense. It doesn't excuse the rich people who are for him. But it excuses some, I think. I guess. No one should be excused. No one. Okay, what else I got here? Hang on. Yesterday I was saying don't let your kid grow up to be a field goal kicker. Here's what I found out. The poor field goal kicker for the Bills, who cost the Bills the game against Kansas City, in all probability, has been receiving death threats. Yeah. Incredible. I don't know if the poor Packer field goal kicker, who also lost the game for the Packers against the 49ers, is receiving death threats. But given this new Trumpian America, I suspect he is as well. And one good thing that I saw that the NFL put out, trying to do a positive spin on the plight of their field goal kickers who don't split the uprights. It turns out that over $25,000 has been raised for a cat rescue charity that this poor Buffalo field goal kicker, Tyler Bass, is affiliated with. It's his charity. He loves cats. That figures. So there have been some people, I guess, on social media saying, let's at least help this guy feel that all this horror is having at least some benefit to the cats he loves. And the NFL says that it's Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs fans, and Buffalo Bills fans as well, who have donated over $25,000 to, it's called 10 Lives Club. I stand by, obviously, do not let your kid grow up to be an NFL field goal kicker. I see that the Pittsburgh Science Center has got a name change. Well, good luck with that. I mean, it's going to be the Pittsburgh Science Center no matter what, because did you hear what the change is? You tell me if this is what you're going to call it. The change is the Daniel G. and Carol L. Kamen Science Center. Yeah, that's what I said too. I want to say to the Kamens, Daniel G. and Carol L., don't take it personally. It's the Science Center, okay? I get that the science, I don't know if the Kamens said, we'll give you all this money if you put our name on it, or it was just something that the Science Center, upon getting apparently $65 million is what the Kamens gave them. $65 million, which is $10 million more than the cost of operating all 4 Carnegie museums combined this year. Whoa. It's the largest gift, obviously, they've ever had. And I got to say, they're going to upgrade the galleries, exhibits. They're going to do all kinds of stuff with that money, including renaming it in honor of the people who gave them this extraordinary gift of $65 million. But I got news for the Kamens, and I know they must. I don't know them. No one's going to call it the Kamen Simon. They're certainly not going to call it the Daniel G. and Carol L. Kamen Science Center. And no one's going to call it the Kamen Science Center unless it's just going to be the Science Center, the Pittsburgh Science Center. I just want to tell people that. I hope they're not unhappy. And one other thing from yesterday, I had talked about how there's this house for sale across from what's left of Tree of Life, and how it's not a good time to try to sell it. To sell a home across from a massacre site is difficult, but now it's across from a huge deconstruction and then construction process, which would be another problem. And as you guys pointed out, it's also on a busy corner, but obviously that doesn't bother some people. And I was saying, wow, these people, whoever they are, I don't know who they are, bad timing, but whatever. And then more than one of you, upon hearing that, I guess took immediately to what, Zillow or something, looked up the house, and those who did all came to the same conclusion. Well, geez, it ain't selling because they're asking too much. And it turns out what they're asking $1 million. Well, excuse me, $999,999. They're asking $1 million. Which, hope springs eternal, but you're selling something on a busy corner across from a massacre site with that's going to be the home of a new museum, and there's going to be a lot of even more traffic. That would be I though said it is one of the few homes that appears to be on one floor, which is rare. So some rich old person might buy it. An old rich deaf person should buy it. There's the buyer that the realtor needs to go looking for. A rich, disabled, deaf buyer. That's who wants that house. I have a call. Hello.
Hi, Lynn. It's Beth. The advantage of living on Woodland Road, I guess, to ask for the money.
No sound.
Just going back with some of the things you said as far as media today, I go back the last time I feel like I watched something on mainstream media that actually gave you the who, what, when, why, and it was actual just dealing with facts, was with ESPN when Damar Hamlin went down. And the fact that you had sports reporters and Joe Buck, Lisa Salters, and I can't think of his name, that all said, you know what, we're not bringing on doctors to speculate this. They said, we just need to deal with the facts because we deal with too many of these players and we don't want to scare them. And we need to give the public just what we know. And I thought, wow, hey, every other news site, can we please duplicate this? Because it's what's needed.
Yeah, that chance.
And I think so many, because again, so few corporations own these media sites, Lynn, that, there's a lot of money around that idiot, and they're making money off of him and selling his name and his brand and everything else.
Absolutely. He's hard to quit. They make money off Trump. They make money off him. How are they supposed to quit him when they're owned by corporations in a capitalist economy? How are they supposed to quit him?
Yeah, they can't. That's the problem.
They can't unless we do. That's why I'm not watching.
No, you know what?
And they won't.
But where do you go to be informed outside of, all the newspapers, those that are diminishing, as far as TV media? I'm just saying it's a vapid world of news right now.
Which is, again, why we are in a position of having to, for the first time, literally defend our democracy from within. Because people don't have access to true, mucked with news.
It's the belief, but it's also the belief factor. Tying in to what? Excuse me, Lynn. Sorry.
Yeah, you sound like me.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's
tying into what that letter to the editor was, or the Republicans have tied into the anger in this country, or the Trump against. Yes. There's definitely been a building ferment from, I think, especially the blue collar side in this country.
Yeah.
And instead, the people who jump on, the Lindsey Grahams and that ilk, because they're embracing the anger. They know anger has power in some ways, but they're not doing anything to solve these people's problems like the Democrats do.
Right.
And that's the message again. It goes back to messaging. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you say. It's interesting you say that because Nicholas Kristof had a piece about this friend of his who went bad and served time and all that kind of stuff, and he wrote about him, and then he said this about so many people in our nation, because he was a guy who didn't get educated. The country failed him as a child in a million ways, and he says this, and this also begets the anger that begets Trump. Christoph said this: a nation cannot thrive when so many are left behind. And then he has the numbers. One gauge of how many Americans are struggling is that average weekly wages, which is a metric for blue collar earnings, non-supervisory wages. So this is the guys, the grunts. The blue collar workers, their median average weekly wage was lower in the first half of last year, 2023, than, again, adjusted for inflation, than in the first half of 1969. Adjusted for inflation, a blue-collar worker working today is making the same as a worker in 1969. So our capitalism has become, the robber barons are alive and well. And he says this: the burden of the inequities for people in America is obvious. And apparently, I mean, Native American men, Black men, have shorter life expectancies in America than men living in India, in Egypt, in Venezuela. We are. And, Trump talks about like we're a horrible country, we're a third world country, but he's not he has no intention of helping these kinds of statistics. And here is one more thing. Nobel Prize winning economist in Amsterdam said this: capitalism in America today is not working for 2/3 of adults who do not have a college education. And this is Trump's base, right?
Yeah. And add on that other statistic that 70% of our nation's wealth is no longer self-made. It's inherited. It's trust fund wealth, which is even a more dangerous thing, I have to say, and a capitalistic thing, because there's no realization of what a real day's work is. You have to get up and go to a job. You don't automatically get into that school that, you got into. And there are a lot of those issues as well. But I think the other thing that kind of reading yesterday that kind of caught my eye too was Trump is feeling his power again. Definitely. I think he started to feel it. I think there was an inside thing to push McCarthy out. Done. Now you got the election denier and everything else as your speaker, who's not going to push anything through to help Biden and, all his craziness. But it was more so yesterday, the stuff coming out of the senatorial Republican caucus and the attacks that were going, I guess, at McConnell. And who was starting these attacks but Johnson from Wisconsin, Cruz, Hawley. It's the same perpetrators as they're
going to take McConnell. They're going to take McConnell down and have one of the Trumpians in his stead.
You know what? I think the only thing saving McConnell, in all honesty, is Thune around him. I'll throw this out there. Capito too. Ernst. You still have a couple people who negotiate with the Democrats, do well with the other Republicans. They're at least somewhat, from what I've read, liked. I don't, and the quiet whatevers. But this is the first time I've really seen an orchestrated attack against McConnell, and also the fact that it getting out of what was said, and that just usually has never happened because, he was the money keeper for their senatorial, campaigns.
Well, he's in a very weakened state in many, many ways. So he does not have long. And then you've got people like Romney who decamping, right? So as has happened with Republicans who refuse to be part of the Trump party, they don't stay and fight. They leave.
Yeah, but you know what, Lynn? In some ways, like with Romney, like with Liz Cheney tried to stay, but how do you, when you look at the private security, with Romney, who cares about the private security costs? Let's say Adam Kinzinger, the security that you need afterwards, still the death threats that you're receiving. It's
right.
And how that doesn't and that's why a lot of them who don't believe whatever Trump says, they're just tapping out and going because they don't want to have to put their family or themselves. They're not taking a stand-up moment, that's for sure. There's no profile in courage in any of these folks, except I'm going to say Kinzinger and Cheney.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I totally agree. It is incredible and dispiriting, even if we comprehend that they're literally, this is how the brown shirts work. They intimidate people into doing what they have to do.
And the other thing they did was you discredit anything of knowledge. You discredit doctors, the lawyers, the priests, the judges, the rabbis, anybody who a community would look up to as some voice of educated reason. And, I heard a sports talk person say the other day, now in our society, the gym teachers are running our society. And it kind of feels like a race to the stupid. And I'm not saying that to disparage gym teachers. I apologize, but there's that jock mentality also, that alpha male jockness that we're also, it's just unfathomable right now.
All right. You're depressing me.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
No. It's okay. It's okay. Because, I agree with everything you're saying. When you talk about sowing distrust, which is right out of the fascist playbook and the authoritarian playbook, that distrust is also to any institution. So stop and think. Americans now, you just uniformly mistrust almost every institution. And now with AI, we even distrust our own eyes and ears.
Now you're depressing me. Thanks, Lynn. Hey, real quick, I did confront someone who had a Trump thing on at a local establishment that my wife and I will go to, and kind of just know them by name. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And saw they had the Trump thing on. And did say to them, we know you, you know us, how can you support him at this point, and we just had actually a really good conversation. And then from that, we started saying, that's the problem now is that we can't talk. There's, before you used to have conversations, one side would say something, the other side would listen, and maybe you wouldn't come out of it the same way you went into it. And we started talking about flat tax and all this stuff, and then said, well, you can support him. It's not like supporting an unknown. He already was president once before, but what did he do to really help you? And I don't know if it changed them, but, we felt better in doing it.
Okay, good for you.
Well, thank you.
Don't do it with the wrong people because you'll end up with lead in you.
I know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Bye. Bye. Oh, God. Speaking of lead, there's this little newspaper that comes out in the East End. It's Pittsburgh's East End newspaper. It's called Print. And it comes out, I don't know, every few weeks. It is the result of a former Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reporter, Ann Belzer. And, I get a lot of interesting stuff. And I want to, here's one. Front page. Homicides, non-fatal shootings plunge in city. Now, this is a story based only on numbers provided by the Pittsburgh police. So it's not like, oh, they're spinning this. No. So here's what I want to ask you. I have never bumped into so much of a perception that Pittsburgh has gone to hell in a handbasket, that violence is rife again. When in fact, it's way down. Where do we get that impression? That misimpression? Media. Our television news, radio news, our newspaper, talk radio, Marty Griffin, the Republican Party. Here are the numbers. The police chief pointed out that homicides in Pittsburgh dropped from 71 in 2022 to 48 in 2023. That is a 32% decrease, which is twice the decrease that the entire country saw, because the national homicide rate dropped by 13%. Pittsburgh doubled that. Then some. So when Bill Peduto was the mayor, more people were being killed. There was not this perception. The perception upticked incredibly when a black man became the mayor. I have no idea if Mayor Gainey is a good mayor or a not so good mayor or whatever. I really don't. But I noticed that as soon as he became mayor, and after the pandemic, when he was faced with the incredible gutted downtown and all of that, the perception that was shared by unbelievable numbers of people was that this was an incredibly dangerous city. Another decline. 2021, Peduto is the mayor. There are 179 non-fatal shootings in the city, which was the most since 2016, when Peduto was also the mayor. Gainey comes in, and that number drops to 153 in 22, and in 23, it gets cut in half, 80. What is the proper headline? Fewer, way fewer. Homicides cut in half. Non-fatal shootings cut in half. That's not what you're seeing on the news. That's not the perception you are left with. And that falls directly on those people who have your attention. You might want to think about not giving it to them. On television news, which lives off the police scanner, I said this the other day, giving an impression that the city's a hellhole. You live in a hellhole. It makes me nuts. It makes me nuts. And as with Donald Trump, media make money off of scaring the bejeebers out of you. They don't make money telling you everything's fine. They do not. And that's why media literacy is the most important thing. And we are a nation of media illiterates. I want to note the passing, before I run out of time here, of Charles Osgood. What a just unique, special purveyor of actual news he was. Most people know him from anchoring Sunday Morning on CBS. And he took over that show from a genius, Charles Kuralt, who was so loved because Charles Kuralt was my all-time, I so looked up to him. And unbelievably, CBS found a guy who could fill the shoes and keep that same folksy, human feel. Charles Osgood. Speaking of Charles Kuralt, I met him when I had just gotten into television. I was a reporter in Madison, Wisconsin, at a CBS affiliate, and Charles came to town for something he was shooting. I don't know what. And he came into the newsroom to do some work. And he sat at my desk and used my typewriter. I was so blown away. I thought, I'll never wash that typewriter's keys again. I never had washed those typewriter keys. And yeah, so who knows? Some of Charles Kuralt's germs I got. I don't know. But anyway, Charles Kuralt, incredible. Charles Osgood, incredible. Good guys. Although when Kuralt died, didn't it become known that he had a second family? Am I remembering that right? That just came into my head. That avuncular, wonderful character, that he had a second family? Is that possible? I can't be making it up. It couldn't have come out of nowhere. Okay, so whatever. Okay, guys, I know we started a little late, so technically I do have some time. But screw it. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. So thank you very much for spending any of this time with me, and I'll be here tomorrow. Quote Uncle Dougie, "The good Lord willin', and the creeks don't rise."
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.